Welcome, everybody. So I am live on Facebook and Instagram, and we are talking about how to feed your food allergy family well, even when you hate cooking. Now, before we get into that, I want to let you know about my free masterclass. It's coming up next week. It is the secret to feeding your food allergy family well without stress. And I know that that is something huge, so I wanted to do a free course on that, and it's online, so you just have to register. So I'm going to go into much more detail than I go into here on these coffee chats. So hopefully you can join me for that. You can go to www.friendlypantry.com/masterclass, and you can register there. So if you're here today, are you feeling that you hate cooking? Are you in that point where you're feeling really burnt out, like you're just not enjoying the time you spend cooking? Because I know as a food allergy mom, it is something that we do constantly. We have to make everything from scratch, and if we're not cooking for dinners, we are cooking and baking as well. So there's a lot of time that we spend in the kitchen. So sometimes, and I know I was in this place where I got to the point where I absolutely hated cooking. So if this is you, you're in the right place today. If you're feeling like you're going down that path, like you're starting to get uninspired and you just don't know what to do anymore, then also this is the right place for you today. And I know I was talking about in my Instagram stories, if you saw them, I was talking about getting organized, and that was something that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. So go back to my Facebook Lives. If you're watching on Instagram right now, there is a Facebook Live about getting organized. So sorry for that misunderstanding on my stories. We are talking about cooking when you hate it today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey. When my oldest daughter got her allergy, she was, I don't know, like just under a year, we found out she was allergic to milk and eggs. And I was honestly at that point really determined to cook for her and create meals that were safe. And, you know, I wasn't the best cook, but I was honestly happy and energized to do it. And I spent many days learning how to do it. I watched cooking shows. I read many recipe books. I got right into it. And she outgrew her allergies kind of around when she was about 4. But then my youngest daughter, they overlap for a little bit, but she was just getting into her peanut and tree nut allergies. And so I was starting all over again. I mean, I knew I could do it because I had already learned to cook for milk and egg free, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. So I, again, became a better cook. I started learning what to do, and we kind of got into a new normal. And we did this for several years. And it was, I think, about 2.5, maybe 3 years ago that my youngest also was diagnosed with a gluten intolerance. So our allergist was asking us now to remove gluten in addition to the peanuts and tree nuts. This started to get harder for me. It was again starting from square one. I honestly felt like everything had either peanuts, tree nuts, or gluten in it. And if this is happening to you with your allergen, I know how you feel, because sometimes you can just go to the grocery store and you read labels, and it's like every single thing you pick up has that allergen. It's crazy sometimes, and it's stressful, and it's overwhelming. And just going to that grocery store constantly trying to find something that's safe can be really disheartening sometimes. So that's how I felt. I started to get less and less motivated to cook. I felt like I had a huge weight on my shoulders, and I dreaded being in the kitchen. And I never knew what to make. I got into a huge cooking rut. I made the same thing over and over, and I honestly hated every minute that I was doing it. So I knew something had to change. I couldn't provide my family with what they needed. There wasn't enough variety, and I felt like they deserved more. So I'm guessing that's how some of you feel today. And give me a yes in the comments. Let me know if you know what I'm talking about, if this is how you felt. And so I honestly decided, I was just starting Friendly Pantry Consulting, and I had started to actually see clients that had the milk and egg allergies. They were having some other allergies. And so I started to realize, okay, I needed to do something here, because now I was helping clients. So there was a combination of things I started to do, and I started to realize what I was doing and making sort of a process in how I was doing it. So there's two things that really, really made a huge difference when it came to hating cooking for food allergies. And one was meal planning. And okay, I know there's probably a lot of you that are watching that don't agree with meal planning, but hear me out, because I know that there's some that don't like to be restricted to a schedule, but this can definitely work for you too. And it's not just meal planning by itself, but it's the combination of number one and number two that I'm going to tell you about today that actually really made a difference for me when it came to enjoying cooking again. So meal planning is the best way to kind of get breaks from cooking all the time. It's the only way to get really good variety, so you're not always searching for those new products and reading labels and constantly feeling overwhelmed. And it's the way to become really, really efficient in the kitchen. And keep in mind that this is not the regular old meal planning. It's not where you're just searching for recipes that are safe for your family and then jotting them down for that week. I'm talking about intentional meal planning. So you're going to plan on purpose with your food allergies in mind, so that you know more than what you're just eating that week, but you're also going to be planning so that you're creating breaks for yourself and you're making your life easier and you're spending less time in the kitchen. So if you hate cooking or you're feeling burnt out from cooking, this is exactly what you need. And I do teach the exact way I do this in my Inspired Kitchen membership. And it's open right now, just so you know, if you want to check it out. But for now, here's a couple of ways that you can intentionally meal plan that will help you. So number one, definitely don't just write down what you plan to make for dinner that week. Use a really good template so that when you write down what you're making this week, you can reuse it for next week. Keep it in a binder. Keep it somewhere where you're going to find that and you can reuse it. If you think about it, if you create that meal plan once and that grocery plan once, and then you reuse it again, you're already decreasing your effort by half. So is that not great? I mean, that is something that we all want to get rid of, is that effort and that difficulty of what we have to always do. So the next part of meal planning is to utilize bulk cooking and bulk baking. So if you guys want to get out of the kitchen, this is a huge one, because when you start doing these bulk cooking, bulk baking times, you are going to reduce the amount of dishes that need to get done. You're going to get several things cooked at one time, so you have easy, delicious, and healthy homemade meals in your freezer for those days that you do not want to cook. And that's going to come, those days are going to come. And they might not be just that you don't even want to cook. It's just those days when you are feeling like you're too busy, like you're running the kids around, you just don't have the time. But you want to have those, I call them freezer frenzy meals, in your freezer so that you can grab them. You know the kids like them, you know they're healthy, and they're easy. So that way you're getting rid of those expensive allergy meals, right? Because those allergy pre-made meals are super expensive. So the other thing you're going to do when you start to bulk cook and bulk bake is that you're going to clean your kitchen once instead of many times. And who likes to clean? I mean, I know I don't. So this is a huge draw for me. So the last time we did a bulk cook in my membership, I cooked a total of 16 meals within about 3 hours. And that meant, if you think about it, I cleaned my kitchen and I did my dishes one time instead of 16 times. So if you think about how amazing that is and how much time you're saving, it is something you want to start right away. So those are the things when you come with meal planning, those are the things that you really want to start to think about. And there's more ways to become efficient. Those are just two of them. But the other thing that I want to talk about when you really hate to cook is how you become inspired and how you have fun with it again. Because adding those efficiencies and time savings techniques with the meal planning is great, but maybe you want to actually enjoy the cooking again. And I do this, and I teach this in my membership as well, cooking with whole foods. And like I told you before, when my daughter was first diagnosed, gluten, peanuts, and tree nuts were in everything. I couldn't find things that they weren't in. I was frustrated, and I felt like there was so few products she could eat. But I started to realize, especially when I started to also help my clients who had like other top 8 allergies or even non-top 8 allergies, was that get rid of prepackaged food altogether. Get rid of the label reading altogether. Start with the basics. And that means cooking with whole foods, fresh meat, fresh produce, delicious things like that. There's no labels on a carrot. And once I kind of figured this out, I knew I had to kind of create something so that it would make it easier. So at first it seemed kind of overwhelming, and I wasn't sure that I could actually create interesting and delicious foods this way. But there's definitely some easy cooking techniques and basics that will make it much easier and give you a lot more confidence. So I taught myself what I needed to know so I could create meals from scratch. And I started revamping old recipes that we couldn't eat before and making them safe. And I would make them safe for our family, but also for my clients. And I even actually last summer wrote an allergy-friendly recipe book that was really successful, and I was super, super happy with it. So if I can write a recipe book using these techniques, then you can do it too. Like honestly, you may not want to create a recipe book, but just using the basic techniques about how to cook whole foods, you can do that if you really wanted to. And that's the really cool thing, because learning to cook this way and feeling that kind of inspiration in the kitchen is amazing. It's freeing and it's inspiring. So you don't feel that weight on your shoulders all the time, and it's engaging in the process. So as you're cooking, you're not sort of stuck with that recipe. You can actually change it up and feel confident and say, I'm going to add a little bit of this because I know that sour balances sweet, or all those just little ideas, little ways to make it easier. This experimentation changed my life because it made it so much more easy for me to want to be in the kitchen and to cook things that I just made up from scratch, which is kind of crazy when I think about it, honestly. So those are the two main things that I would really recommend when you hate cooking. I like to keep these short and sweet. If you want to get some more details on this, you can join me in my masterclass. I talked about it at the beginning, and it's called The Secret to Feeding Your Food Allergy Family Without Stress. And you can look at www.friendlypantry.com/masterclass. And I'm going to go into more detail on this. And I'm going to help you get into these skills, learning them so you don't feel so stuck, you don't feel like you hate the kitchen so much anymore. It's going to help you feel motivated and inspired about food. And it's going to get you on the right path, starting with meal planning so that you don't have to struggle one more day. So that is definitely something you want to check out. I hope that I'll see you there. It's going to be next week. I'm holding 2 of them on Wednesday. So I'd love to see you there. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm gonna take a couple of questions if you have some. And If you do, that would be great. I'm just checking to see if I'm still live on Facebook as well as Instagram, and I think I am. Share this video if you know of somebody who's feeling like they just are so sick of cooking, they're in that rut. Share it with them. This on Instagram, it's only here for 24 hours, but on Facebook, it is there. It should be the whole time. So that is that. Join me again next week. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to assume that you don't have any, but feel free if you want to ask afterwards to send me a private message or put a comment in the video or send me a DM on Instagram. I am happy to answer questions for you. So again, we will see you next week, same time, same place. And I don't actually remember what we were talking about, but there will be something good. So let's chat next week. And that's it for today. Bye for now.